Welcome to the How to Die in Mexico podcast. We help expats live better in Mexico by addressing end-of-life worries and fears through education, contemplation, and planning resources. I am your host, Sarah Mae Conway, author of the book, How to Die in Mexico, and you can find me at dyinginmexico.com. Today, I am speaking with Luena, Pearson of Comfort Care, a resource organization in Todos Santos in Baja California Sur.
We have, all kinds of services. After surgical care, if people just need somebody to take them shopping or drive them somewhere. So really, it's a composite of all kinds of services to the community.
Comfort Care provides nursing services, volunteer assistance, and education to those facing illness, death, or bereavement.
We are all going to die. So all the things that one should do to prepare for that. Look after your suitcase, pack it well for your next adventure, and then live a wonderful life.
Lou is a retired registered nurse from Canada who now lives full-time in Mexico, where she is an invaluable asset to the community. Learn more about Lou and her work at comfortcare.mx.
If energy can't die, then we can't. The part that we, lose is the physical part.
May this episode be of benefit to you, and if it is, I would greatly appreciate your support in the form of a like or a follow, or better yet, leave a review. But yeah, maybe you can just start by just telling me about you and how you came to live in Todos Santos, and maybe a little bit about how you came to work in this wonderful world of end of life and death care.
That's a long
It's
story.
a long story. Welcome a long story.
Long story. Yeah, because I've lived a long life already. So how did I get here? That's a good question, actually. I sometimes look back and wonder how that I started out as a nurse, and I nursed for several years. And then, got married, raised kids, canned fruit, had a garden. When I left, I was actually doing a lot of um, creative work. I was an artist, and I was painting and selling my paintings to the hospital staff. And then I thought, well, if I can sell to the hospital staff, certainly I can sell other people's paintings. So anyway, that started a business career. I left nursing and went into business, and that lasted 25, 30 years, something like that. And then in the meantime, I raised 3 kids. And after 19 years, my husband and I of the time divorced. Over the years, too, right from the time I was in high school, people dying have been a big part of my life. When I went into nurses training, I was engaged to be married. Back in the day, in the 50s and stuff, when when I was growing up, you know, if you're a woman, you were trained really subconsciously to, if you wanted a career, it was only in case your husband died.
Mm.
So you could be a nurse, you could be a secretary, you could be a stewardess, you could, those things. I wanted to be a doctor, actually. But my mom convinced me that I should be a nurse because she'd been a nurse. But anyway, that's so that my first heartbreaking death. You know, that big black hole in your stomach, and you wake up in the morning and everything's fine until you actually wake up and it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
That grief part was my fiance, who was one of 5 RCMP drowned in Canada, Lake Simcoe. And that was in 1958. So I think I got married on the rebound. But anyway, that's another story. But, and then over the years, I had 9 siblings. Even my youngest sibling is now gone. So all 9 of my brothers and sisters died. My mom and my dad died. My grandparents died. My friends started to die. Even at a young age, my friends started to die.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, and I'm also, my kids always, you know, they always call me the woo lady because I saw things,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I felt things. And um, I guess the first time that it really hit home was when my fiance died when I was 18. And when I watched him go back to his job as a police officer, when I was home from training, the plane, when it took off, was flying. And you know that you see it all the time, that picture of Jesus. I'm not a religious person in that sense. So the picture of Jesus who has the lamb
Yes. Yep.
in his arm.
Yep.
Okay. Well, the lamb became the plane.
Mm,
And I saw it as plain as day. And that's when I thought, he's going to die. Something's going to happen.
mm,
And it did 3 months later. But so that was my first um, introduction to that really kind of death.
mm-hmm.
I had 3 children, and I have 4 stepchildren, which are wonderful. And my oldest son passed away.
Mm,
That was in 2016, and he was 56 years old. And it, I the his gift to me was my learning to understand that what I thought I knew all about death, I didn't. And that's when I became a doula. I went through the
mm,
training to become a doula. Um, so it's pretty easy, you know. I nursed. I was in business for the art. I was in business as an interior designer. And then uh, I married my current husband almost 50 years ago now. And we had a business, construction and interior design business. And when we closed that, we always knew we were going to come to Todos Santos right from the first time we were here in 1992. It was always our plan to move here, which we did.
mm-hmm.
So, you know, life is kind of cyclic because I started out as a nurse, business. Then I became a Reiki master. I went back to university when I was older, much older, um, and and got a degree in holistic health. And then I became a Reiki master teacher, studied for that, and a doula, and it ended up in Todos Santos. And I just picked up where I left off when I first started,
Yeah. Yeah.
which
Did
was nursing and, you know,
caring for others. Yeah.
yeah, it's service to the community. And I met a wonderful lady here, oh, many years ago now. um, Wendy Rains, and she had started a organization called Comfort Care in 2017. So I was there right at the beginning of that. And then when she decided that there were other things that she needed to do in her life, then I took that over in 2021.
Hmm.
And death and dying can be such a beautiful thing. And I learned that when I took the doula course because of my son.
Yeah,
What
if you feel comfortable, like, can you say a little bit more about, you said, of course, like, I can't even imagine the pain of losing a child. I don't have children, and I can't even imagine what that might be like. But can you say a little bit more about how you said, I think you said something about like you thought you knew
Mhm.
everything that you thought you knew about death and dying changed
Mm.
with his loss. And then and then I just wonder, like, as painful as that is, like, yeah, it led you to take the doula course. So did you have some gut feeling already that there was something um beautiful or worth exploring or worth working with a little more when it came to caring for the dying?
Oh, sure. Over
Yeah.
the years, the little bits and pieces. Um, you know, there's all kinds of grief. There's all kinds of feelings that we have as human beings. The one thing that is consistent is that until you actually experience a certain kind of grief or a certain this or a certain that, you can't really know
Mhm.
what that what another person is feeling unless you've had that same experience as they have had. And even that, each person's grief is different, or each person's circumstances are different, or each person's understanding. And the big thing is that, you know, we live in a world of dichotomy here on Earth. I call it Earth School because we're learning, always learning. And because of that, we grow, we change. And so, what might happen to one person when they're, say, 20 might be different for another person when they're 50 or 80 or whatever. I guess what I'm trying to say is that we're all different.
Mhm.
But the one cohesive thing about each of our experiences is if we have had the same experience as somebody else, and therefore we're able to help them more through that very difficult experience or happy experience, whatever it is. And I'll tell you a funny little story. Um, and I learned that as a student nurse, actually, because I was in my second year in the delivery room with a lady who was having her baby, and the doctor and the other nurse, the regular nurse that was there, thought that she wasn't ready to deliver, and they went off to lunch and they left me. Well, she was really able to deliver, believe me, because she did, and it scared me to death because I wasn't really sure what to do. But I can remember saying to her, to this day, I remember this, "It's okay, dearie. You're going to be okay. You're going to be just fine. You're having your baby." What did I know? Right? I was 17 years old. She looked at me and she screamed at me and she said, "What the do you know about having a baby? Have you ever had one?" And that I can still hear her saying that because it's so true. I had no idea why she was screaming, you know, or that or her pain or her fear or any of those things. And that little lesson when I was very young has stood me in good stead. Um, because at least when it comes to people who are dying themselves or a family member who has somebody that they love who is dying, I know exactly how they feel.
Mhm.
You know, they might be reacting differently to it. But I remember when my son was sick. And when I look back now at how I handled that, I realized that what I knew about dying then and the death process was all medical.
Mm,
But because it was my son and I'd experienced death with my sister, with my best friend, with a whole bunch of people before, but now this was my son. And if I had it to do all over again, because the first thing that we all go into is denial. And I went into denial with both feet. I was going to make that kid better no matter what. So I sourced every single medication I could find. We sent him away to a clinic to be helped. All of the things that you do when you're in that space, but all the while, deep down, I knew.
mhm.
So, and I watched the people who looked after him. I got angry at a doctor who said to him one day when he was at a session, uh, when was the last time you had a glass of red wine? And of course, my son said, "Oh, no, I don't have red wine anymore because, you know, cancer loves sugar." I would let him have as many bottles of wine as he could drink if I could go through that because I got so angry at the doctor. I thought, "You're a medical, you know that. You shouldn't be telling him." Of course, he should have told them that.
Mhm,
He was dying.
mhm.
So now with people who are in that situation, it's comfort, out of pain, and live the best quality of life that you can live while you're still here.
Yeah.
And there's so much fear attached to death and dying. I just did a workshop actually um, I call it packing your suitcase because the things that we all need to do, whether we're going to die tomorrow or 10 years from now or whatever, we are all going to die. No ifs, ands, or buts. That's a given. Um, so all the things that one should do to prepare for that. It's an adventure. It's a journey. When we plan to go to Italy or wherever, or what do? We pack a suitcase. So we need to do that to prepare for our passing, our transition, whatever you want to call it. And it also helps your family or your friends or whoever is left behind. Because I think it's really selfish to leave them with a big mess. So basically, the workshop was about that. And I have a book called Adios Amigos, which outlines all of that. It's for everybody, no matter where you live, but a big chunk of it is for if you are an expat and you're dying in Mexico.
Yes. Yeah, I've definitely, I've seen the book on your website and I've heard a lot about it, and, it seems like you also have a lot of good like, just, basic lists of, like, on the website of things that you need to do to prepare,
Mhm,
things that you
mhm,
especially need to have if you're an expat living in Mexico, which is really,
mhm.
really helpful. Yeah, maybe could you say a little bit about, did you come to Comfort Care first as a volunteer? And yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and then maybe say a little bit about just in general the work that Comfort Care does, the services provided.
Well, basically, it's outreach into the community, and uh, we have all kinds of services. Um, after surgical care, if people just need somebody to take them shopping, or drive them somewhere, or for instance, in my work, I work with a lot of people who are dying and their families, but also there's within the community, there are a lot of people who are early stage dementia, so that's a whole different kettle of fish, depending on the stage, what kind of dementia they have, for the family and for the person involved. So really it's a composite of all kinds of services to the community. And because I love Mexico so much and I love the Mexican people, I did an outreach to another organization here called the Aaron Cota Foundation. And um to see, because they do the same thing for the most part in the Mexican community, not the doula work so much, but um, they care for people who need food. They um, those kind of things. And so I thought it would be a great idea to try and merge the two, at least work together. So yes, so I work with that organization too, and and I'm a volunteer in that organization. But what was really wonderful about that is when I first met the lady who started it, she started it because her son died, and her son had been very active in the community. So she started this organization in his name. And when the two of us found out that our sons, both our older sons, our oldest sons had passed away, same age, same year, same illness.
Oh, wow.
So it was like, that magic glue that sometimes when you meet somebody, it's like, so yes. Um, so that's a great gift too. And a year ago, I have a partner here. His name is Dr. Alan Azura. He's a young doctor. So we're kind of on both ends of the spectrum with this. Um, he's, I think, well, maybe 40. you know, I'm 86, almost 87. I learn a lot from him. He learns a lot from me. And we started what we call the a Casa Girasol Adult Social Center.
Mm.
And it's for elders to come, and we have workshops, but basically it's for socialization. Um, it's for memory care. He helps with some medical issues, things like that. So that's open. And our end game goal um, is to move this forward and also set up an assisted living facility. Not the kind of facility that are all over the continent now and in Europe and everything. Not the independent living part, because that's there's still care for in-home, in-home care if somebody needs that. But for people who need the assisted living and then the hospice, that kind. Not a huge one. Um, we don't want it'll be a nonprofit because it's not a money-making thing. It's just simply to um, fill a need in the community. And you don't have to be an what you know what? I have to come up with a new name for those of us who are, sort of like over 80, the 80 club, the new club, whatever. Um, because it's a privilege to get older.
Yes.
You know, when we're young, we don't think that that's a privilege at all because of the advertisements we see that you're supposed to look like this and talk like this and be like this. Um, every age is a privilege, really. And so it's the center isn't just for, say, people over 80. It's for the 50s and 60-year-olds that I also see, or 70-year-olds who simply want to age better.
Yeah, you said, and especially like thinking forward, to assisted living and hospice care. You said you're really responding to a community need. Like, what's sort of your I'd be curious what sort of your assessment of, like, what's going on in Todos Santos and especially in the expat communities. Like, are people how are people dying? Are people getting the care they need? Are people yeah, you said, we need more socialization, everything. I mean, yeah, what's sort of the lay of the land, so to speak, and what kinda help do people need the most? Or yeah.
It's kind of like a big murky soup right now,
Mm,
um, because the populace is changing. There's a lot of people who are moving, expats particularly, who are moving to Todos Santos. Some bring their parents. So they need caregivers and then they need respite. And a lot of elderly people who have lived here for a long time would love to stay, but they can't. There's not enough services here to support them in, in ways that they, well, assisted living, for instance. Um, and particularly if they're alone, and a lot of them are now, there's a lot of widows here. Um, so it's kind of a mix right now. I think everything is needed in this community, you know, and dementia care is one. Now, dementia, as you know, is just it's just an it's like IBS. It's just an umbrella, you know, with all the types of dementias underneath it. Uh, Same as IBS is for your, your gut. So, um, I have right now, I can tell you that there are 6 situations like this that I know of that I look after. Alan helps me a lot because, um, he has a practice here, a medical practice, a GP, but he's also keenly interested in dementia and geriatric care.
that's great.
So we work together to help each other out on that score. And but they, it's couples. One has dementia, the partner is, 70s and 80s in some cases. And it's hugely difficult for them if they don't have family here. Now, in the Mexican community, there is an upcoming problem starting too, because in the Mexican community, the elders are revered, and our indigenous peoples too. Um, the elders are revered, and it's the children's responsibility to look after the elders when they get older. And like that strong cultural sense is still there. However, the cost of living is going up.
Mhm.
It's more expensive now for people to I'm talking Todos Santos now and Pescadero, and um, much more difficult for them to do that without the younger people going out and getting a job. So that leaves them responsible for their elders, which they are, but very difficult to look after because they're gone part of the time. So that's an upcoming problem that we're seeing here too,
Mhm.
um, trying to address it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is I can see how it is a problem, and I hear also, like, for a lot of, retirees or people that live in expats living in Mexico and they wanna age in place, maybe in other areas, there's a lot of talk about how inexpensive it is to hire someone to come and stay with you in your home or look after you or at least check in on you a couple times a day, or make meals or do these little tasks. And maybe that's not the case so much in Todos Santos specifically as everything gets more expensive. I don't know.
It is a problem. Um, now, having said that, we do a lot of that kind of work.
Mhm,
Uh, where we have people that will um, i- say stay with the person for a couple of hours. Or I just had a case right now where these are expats, but the man has a Mexican wife. um, she has dementia. He has medical problems. So Alan and I are both working in our respective sectors to help them out. He with medical, me with support, and they live at home. They live at home. Communication is also another problem. You know, English, Spanish, English, Spanish. So there's a lot of, say, expats here who don't speak enough Spanish to get along, and I have caregivers who speak fluent Spanish, of course, um, and very little English. So it's a communication thing. So it's
and is that the case that, like, the need well, at least specifically the people that are coming to you that need help are more likely English speakers, and is it the case that the helpers are more likely Spanish speakers, or do you feel like um you have a robust community of, like, expat volunteers, or are the expats volunteering also, or are they just coming to you because they need help?
um both,
Yeah.
I would say. Um, we also have another issue here. You know, we'll have people, say, in the expat community who are willing to help, um, volunteer, whatever, mm, but they're only here for 5 months
Mm,
or 6 months. So those people I use for the short term things. But I can't put somebody who's going to be only here for 4 months, say, with somebody who's going to need care for the year, or somebody who might need care, long term care. So it's two caregivers, it's two shifts, or it might be three shifts, depending on what the need is. So each person is different. Their needs are different. The family's needs are different. So it's finding that wide range of help that can cover that wide range of problems.
mhm. Can we talk a little bit about your Reiki practice, and maybe, I'd love to hear about, is this a practice that you specifically use with people as they're actively dying? How does your Reiki and your death doula work
In sync.
yeah.
In sync. I don't have a Reiki practice per se. Like, I never built it as a business.
Mhm,
That wasn't its purpose when I studied to teach it. Uh, building a business like that was not my intent. I simply wanted to use it as another tool in my toolbox that could ease actual physical pain, uh, give energetic help to people. I do a lot of long distance Reiki, believe it or not,
mm,
with people who are ill. Uh, in surgery, I'll get calls from people saying, um, my husband or my whomever, my friend, um, is sick with blah, 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 blah. Can you send some Reiki? Yes, I can. Uh, surgeries. I had a Mexican fellow diagnosed with a non diagnosis because they didn't know what his problem was. They thought it might be Parkinson's, they didn't know. But in any event, he was not ambulatory. But he loved the Reiki. So once a week, I would pack my Reiki table and I would just go over into the barrio and give him a Reiki session. And what I noticed and and was more concerned about than him, by the way, for some reason, he's much better now. But I did that for 6 months for him. But it was his mom and his dad that that I worried about because they were older and they would have to lift him and be with him, and I felt they needed help more than their son did in that instance. So we see all kinds of things,
Yeah.
and I look at something, my heart breaks. But I've come to the understanding that, I can't fix everybody, nor do I want to, because people really, in the end of the day, have to fix themselves. But the services are provided. I had two young girls, well, not young girls, but in their, you know, midlife. Their dad was down here. He'd been down here for years, and he got a lot of medical problems by himself. He was early stage dementia, and it progressed, and then he had other medical problems, and they didn't know what to do because he couldn't go back to the US anymore. All his veteran affairs things had, fallen by the wayside. So what I looked after him for a while, just visits, but then we got a Mexican couple, a young couple with 3 kids, and they agreed to take him out, and so he lived with them for over 6 years
Oh, wow.
with that couple, and it was great for him. It was good for the family because the girls were able to send the money from, his pension, and so they were paid well. My job was simply just to go out every Saturday, make sure he was okay, that his medical stuff was being looked after, and take them their paycheck. And so I got to know the little girls, and it was lovely. And he just passed away. Um, um, uh, the girls, there's a plan here that I try and get everybody on with one of the funeral parlors,
Mm.
which takes care of, particular for expats, everything. So the family doesn't have to worry about all that paperwork.
Mhm.
Um, it's a process here when somebody dies, and but he was on that program. So when he passed, that was all looked after, and the girls, his daughters said they couldn't they couldn't come down then, but the funeral brought his ashes to me, and I have his ashes sitting here in my office waiting for the girls to come and pick it up.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a seamless transition, a beautiful transition for him with people that cared for him, you know?
Yeah.
And so there's lots of, I mean, I could give you 1,000 different examples of good
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
happens.
That's wonderful to hear. And so it's wonderful that, you as or in your organization were able to facilitate. It sounds like you facilitated that type of connection.
Mhm.
But also, yeah, I'm seeing like even in my community, people facilitating similar connections like that for themselves, especially expats that are here alone and have been here for many, many, many years, and they're linking up with local families that do take on that caregiving role in exchange for
Mhm.
whatever it is, money, or I'm going to build myself a little house on your property and I'll stay there through end of life, and you know, then you have that house on your property, and I had someone to care for me. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's another thing that I'm personally, um, that I am more interested in, I think, than anything. That is education. Okay. I wanted, personally, I think that our when our time here is up, we can have our end is just as beautiful as our life sometimes, and maybe even more so. But so it's education, and it's education for not just about death and dying, but about living, while we're here. So, and I'm training. We have workshops coming up where we're training caregivers.
Mhm.
Too. Okay, where Alan has got a workshop coming up on the middle of May on dementia and how to help. Okay, so we have a whole. I'm doing a mini doula course and all of those kind of things, and just trying to teach. So, you know, I did look at your website, and I can see that you're out there helping with information and education and helping from that aspect, and I think that's great because we get to a lot of people that way.
Yeah.
So there's so many facets just to living, you know? So what I try and let people know is that look after your suitcase, pack it well for your next adventure, and then live a wonderful life.
Yeah, I mean, you're really pointing to this thing of like, I think a lot of people confuse like preparing for death with like that's something that you do when you're much older, when you're almost actively dying, but
Yeah.
you're really driving home this point that it's like we can prepare for death right now and then go out and live these wonderful lives knowing that we have all this taken care of or at least like some type of plan for not leaving behind a lot of work for others to do. um yeah, and I'm curious, like, when you do these presentations, like, out in the community, do you feel like, how is the response? Like, are people really, like I don't know, I just felt like doing this in the little bit of work I've done so far on this, people seem, um, like, really relieved that people are presenting this kind of information and opening the door for us to talk about it, and, I've been really surprised by, like, the positive response. Um, and so I'm hoping that you feel the same way in Todos Santos.
Absolutely. That first workshop I did, I think we had over 30 people there that day, but then the word got out, and uh, I should have done another one in February, and then March came along, and March had running feet. It was over before I had a chance to really do anything. So, and there's a whole series of those workshops. The one is, first of all, well, the pack your suitcase one, that's one thing. That's the documents. But then there's another whole one on the legacy part, you know? How do you want people to remember you? And that's a whole workshop in itself. Uh, And then uh, the active dying. That's another workshop we're gonna do is for what when somebody is well, one is on palliative care, is during that dying process, and then we have another one that is on actively dying, and the vigil, and when a person actually, transitions, and what you can do, and because I work, when I'm working as a doula with individuals, we go into all that
Mhm.
so that they're prepared. If somebody presents this kind of a symptom, they know what it is. It's not scary. And when a person actually transitions, it's a beautiful thing, and you can stay with them, and how to stay with them, and how you can do, all of those kind of little, can be a ritual. It can just a whole bunch of things, but that's another whole workshop in itself. So, yeah, that's all coming up. We have another lady who's member of the uh, Death Cafe
Mm,
movement. She's going to do some of those at the center.
mhm.
A fellow came to show people how to fall, how to prepare for falls, that kind of thing. We just, I love it because um, the cultural center is such an epic facility anyway, with literally with the culture and the energy and everything that's in it, that it facilitates a really beautiful place for us to be. I looked at your website and I really like, the things you're doing and the fact that you're writing a book.
Mm.
I'm envious because my oldest sister was a writer. She was a published
Oh,
writer and a poet. And she kept saying, "You can write, you can write." And I kept saying, "Really? No, I can't." And, but she did make me start a book. This is, she died a few years ago. And I managed to get 2 pages and it's still sitting there.
yeah.
2 pages. And all it says is my book.
Well, it sounds like you're putting a lot of your writing efforts into the blog.
Well, the blogs are experiences.
Yes.
I was finally able to articulate my feelings after my son died, which I could not do for a long time. Like what it was really like and what I just a whole bunch of stuff, and I finally got that on paper. And so I've been meaning to get that on the website, but then I don't know, it was so personal that it still isn't on the website.
Yeah.
But it should be. But it should be because that's a teaching tool.
Yeah. No, I know the feeling. Mm, yeah, there's some fear of putting yourself out there, but it is a teaching tool. And like you said, like we all have this shared experience of grief, um, shared and not shared because we're all unique, but we all do have this shared experience and it does help so much to hear the stories of others, I think.
Yeah, they're important.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing that is, part of my life too is, I'm a bit of a medium and an empathic and, stuff comes, but, uh, sometimes it's deciding whether it's the right time for people to hear it or, oh, all that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, and I was gonna say, yeah, spoken like someone who works with energy, like so much of what you know, so to speak, is felt and is beyond words, right? So,
Yeah, I work
yeah,
work with energy a lot. I mean, we're all energy. Everything is energy, right? So we all work with it. It's just um, being able to acknowledge it
mhm.
and work with it, or just wander around in it
Yes,
and not know what's going on. You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're
Yeah.
saying.
So yeah, exactly. I was very fortunate to have great mentors, some great mentors in that realm. And it's helped me a lot, particularly in, well, my Reiki work and also in my doula work. So, well, just living, period.
Mhm.
Yeah. But I have to say, as much as love it here and I love life, I'm looking forward to going home.
You are? Yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's uh, not necessarily today or tomorrow, or because I still have work to do here. But yeah, I can't remember the fellow's name. I have it here. I'll I may email it to you. But in essence, what he said was, when I was born, I was crying, and all those around me were happy and laughing. He said, I want to live my life so that when I die, I'm happy and laughing and everybody else is crying.
I love this. Yeah, talk about coming full circle, the repeating cycle. I love that. Yeah, and I don't know about feel the same way, but I think the paradox is like if we really do talk about death and do get the suitcase packed and do all these things to prepare it, you know, it's not that we're becoming like the more we think about dying, it's not that we become more and more morbid or depressed or any of these things. It's that it really frees us to be the ones laughing when the time comes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's I think a lot of how people um feel about dying is one thing. Okay? Death is another. They're two totally different things. I mean, we can have death without the dying part, really, in an accident or something. But um, I think it's fear of the unknown, and that fear can stem from whatever your belief system is or isn't,
Mhm.
which has really nothing to do with any of the orthodox religions. Um, when people ask me about that, I say, you know what? It's straight physics. It's been proven by science that energy cannot die. Every single thing around us is energy, including us, just revolving at different speeds. The vibrations are different. So if energy can't die, then we can't. The part that we lose is the physical part. And it goes back to being energy anyway, because, you know, it goes to dust or it goes to a tree or it goes to whatever. So it never really dies either. So then the thing is that it's well, okay, but where do we go? And I just say, well, I know I've been there a lot of times, but I can't remember. But I'll let you know when I get there again.
Yeah.
So um, I, I could chat a story after story about people who just thought that nothing. It was nothing once you died, your body died. And to me, that would be a very scary thing. But to this one person I'm thinking of, it wasn't until he realized he was dying. I think I worked with him for about 5 months and with medical stuff too, IVs and all that kind of stuff with cancer. But we had lots of great conversations. And I never tried to talk him into anything because, of course, that's not our job, is to try and convince somebody. But I'd tell him stories and he would tell stories and blah, 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 blah. But I always told him what my belief was. So there was just towards the end of his life, about 2 weeks before he actually died. And he was sleeping. And he woke up and he said, I had the most wonderful dream. And I said, oh, what was the dream? He said, well, um, um, there's going to be a party and all of these people are coming and it's going to be wonderful and blah, 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 blah. So I said, well, who's coming? So he said, I can't believe it. My dad's coming and my grandparents are coming and this person's coming and this person's coming and this person's coming. And I said, that's terrific. And when's this party going to be? And he said, oh, pretty soon. And I said to him, wow, well, where do they all live? Are they all here? And you could just see, and he just said, oh my God, no, they're all dead. I said, yeah, you're going to have a party. Because he was transitioning from, from here to the other dimension, back and forth. That's what people do when they're in that dying process. And you know what? That last 2 weeks of his life were so wonderful for him. Made amends with his son, uh, content, and it was beautiful to see. And when he actually passed, his son was went on side of him holding his hand, and I was on the other holding his hand. And he just slipped away, beautiful little smile on his face.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah. These stories are so important because I think if more people were to hear stories like this and more people were to, get educated on the potential uh to die in that way, like I think less people would be so afraid, if more people would hear these stories of just what happens at the very, very end, that I think
Right.
when we don't know, we fill it with all these ideas of how horrible and painful and sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it can be planned so that it's not.
Mhm.
But again, everybody has a different belief system. And depending particularly if you're a particularly religious person in one form or another or whatever, uh, you have to honor that belief system. Nobody has to agree with it, but you have to honor it because they have a right to believe whatever they want to believe too, just like we do. So um, that is the biggest hurdle at end of life. Uh, and I've dealt with all kinds of different, beliefs, and so you honor them. If somebody wants to have the window open when they die, the window gets open, to let the spirit out, or any of these things, and uh, they're that's as meaningful to them as any of what, say, I believe or you believe is meaningful to you
Mhm.
or me. Um, so what my doula teacher, she said the one thing that you have to remember as a doula is you leave yourself at the door.
Yeah.
And we leave our beliefs and everything else at the door because we are in service to somebody else. And you know what? For us human beings, even to me now, even all the experience I've had and the life I've lived, I still have to remember that.
Yeah.
I still have to say that to myself every time I go see somebody. Okay, leave yourself at the door because we all have egos. As much as we'd like to kick him to the curb every once in a while, but we do. So, yeah, yeah, little things like that, uh, or big things like that.
Mhm.
But it's, I don't regret. As I say, it was my son. My son's dying. The 9 months he lived after his diagnosis, and his death, and afterwards. That uh, was the gift he left me. Yeah, and I found a wonderful doula uh, who taught me a lot. And of course, all the people that I've looked after since have taught me a lot.
Yeah.
So, first school, right?
Yes.
I think that's what we're here for. But anyway,
Yeah. I agree. To learn and share what we've learned. Yeah, what have you've lived since the 90s in this place, like, what are you seeing in terms of the future of end of life care in Todos Santos, and what are you most excited about or most looking forward to? I mean, I know you have your own grand plans, but just, like, community-wise, um, what's the good news on how things are changing?
well, one bit of really great news, um, the Padrino Society, all right? Uh, Nancy Nagel started that some 10 or 11 years ago, and she's done an absolutely fabulous job of it. Now they're in the process of building a big new facility, and that helps hundreds of children here in the community. And I think that's a wonderful thing. Um, that was actually my specialty when I nursed, was pediatrics.
Mm,
Um, the Palapa Society, they look after the educational component for a lot of people, um, you know, young people. And they have programs for, for Spanish and for English. And so that's great. Uh, Other organizations that are here that do great work for cats, dogs, and horses. Uh, is good. It's great. They're creatures too. Uh, St. Jude's is building a hospital, a new hospital. That's pretty well, I'm not sure what allopathic care there, uh, or what what their intent is. It's mostly Western type medicine, but that's okay. We need that here. Uh, the big segment of the population that's left out is, guess what? Our elders, our generational uh, people who have lived a big life and are in a portion of their life now where they need extras.
mhm,
And we don't have that here. Not enough of it. Not enough of it. And so um, that's still a big void that needs to be filled.
mhm,
I'm getting there bit by bit, you know. But when there's so many other organizations that need funding, we when I say we, I don't mean we. There is um, donation overload,
yeah,
volunteer overload, and you can't expect the same people over and over and over and over again to be giving over and over and over again. So we need that kind of fresh money
mhm,
in the town to do some of these things if they want to do it. That's a big thing. We don't need a lot of big money if they don't want to do something good. But you know, um, yeah. So that is a hurdle that our organization is uh, trying to climb over, working to climb over. It'll happen. It always does happen. You know. Um, so I guess that's my answer to your question. Is that that's the area that needs filling.
yeah, yeah.
Big big time.
Well, it sounds like you're doing a wonderful job. with comfort care. And maybe that's a good place to end too, is like how, you know, is everything on the website? It's comfortcare.mx is the website. And is everything, like if I want to volunteer or I want to donate, or if I want to attend one of these wonderful workshops, will I learn about all of that on the website? Or yeah, how do people?
We've got a big mailing list, and once a week I send out a big thing.
You're doing great stuff, and yeah, I'm so glad the community has you, and well, thank you, Lou. Yeah, have a great day, and we'll definitely be in touch.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.